ونستعين ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Continue from Kitab Al-Iman, from Sahih Imam Al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. And Kitab Al-Iman, or faith, as the proper definition of it, is not just the belief in the heart, but it's the belief in the heart, the deeds done by the heart, the speech of the tongue, the actions done by the different parts of the body, which basically the whole religion of Islam. And that's what he said in the first chapter, Al-Iman qawlun wa amal yazid wa yanqus, speech and actions increases and decreases. This is what the proper belief when it comes to matters of Al-Iman. That Al-Iman or faith is speech and actions. The belief in the heart, the deeds done by the heart, the speech of the tongue, and the different actions. This is all from Al-Iman. And it increases and decreases. Increases with the good deeds and decreases with the bad deeds. And as a result of that, he brings all the different chapters to prove this point. And the last chapter that we read last week was about the ayat, or the signs of hypocrisy, which is something that of the weaknesses of Al-Iman. And some actions can take the person outside the fold of Al-Islam or Al-Iman totally, like for major hypocrisy or disbelief. But the ayat of the hypocrisy, which is the practical hypocrisy, if it's correct to translate it like this, it's actions, as we heard from the Hadith, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ, when he speaks, he lies. Lying does not take the person outside the fold of Islam. It's a major sin. And if a Muslim commits this major sin, it affects his Iman, weakens his Iman. And وَإِذَا تُمِنَ خَانَ, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ وَإِذَا تُمِنَ خَانَ. And if he promises, he breaks his promise. And if he's entrusted, he breaks his promise, his entrust, or he betrays it. Which is all major sins. But it doesn't take the person outside the fold of Islam, but it causes for the Iman to be weak. And if a person leaves his Iman like this to be weak with sins and not fulfilling the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that person should have the fear that the whole Iman can be taken away, especially at the moment of death and so on. So the believers, they fear the weakness of an Iman from that aspect. Then after that, he talks of instead of chapters, or sub-chapters about good deeds, going back to the good deeds, which is all from Al-Iman, to prove that this is part of the belief, that actions is part of the Iman, and to get to know these virtuous acts that affects one's Iman. And it gives another perspective when a Muslim is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and another perspective when we're staying away from sins. When you do a good deed, many of us, we only think of the reward. Just focus on the rewards in the hereafter with this deed, which is definitely a good thing. And to have this ihtisab, or to seek the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is with the right intention, this is what we're supposed to do, following the way of the Prophet ﷺ. But another way that should be present in the heart, that this deed, right, it affects my Iman directly. It affects Al-Iman, the most important thing. So we need to strengthen our Iman. And the more the person strengthens his Iman and complete his Iman and die in the state of complete of Al-Iman, this is the people of Jannah. And when a person is about to commit a sin, yes, he should have the fear of Allah, of the punishment as a result of the sin and so on. But what even sometimes worse is to think that this sin would weaken the Iman, would make the person away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he continues to be like this, if he dies in state of weak Iman, either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish him, or if he is forgiven, he will enter Jannah, or if he is punished, eventually he will enter Jannah. But he might lose his Iman if he continue to weaken it. So he says, باب قيام ليلة القدر من الإيمان. قيام ليلة القدر من الإيمان. قيام, standing. ليلة القدر is the night of Al-Qadr in Ramadan. من الإيمان, this is from Al-Iman. This is part of Al-Iman, which is something that is not mandatory. Qiyam Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan is not an obligatory act, it's a recommended act. And it's very stressed, of course, because of the great reward that it's unimaginable whatsoever. Nobody can comprehend how much this great reward is with one night only it's worth 1,000 months, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. Laylatul Qadri khayrun min alfi shahr. It's better than 1,000 months. And how many thousand months a person would live on earth? He can get all of this in one night, but it doesn't mean that he only just worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this one night. No, the condition of it, that he is in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the holy. These are the people that will be given that reward, not the ones that do not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then just come in this one night and do it. So it's a great, great reward. And this great reward this is from Al-Iman. He says, حدثنا أبو اليمان قال أخبرنا شعيب قال حدثنا أبو الزناد عن الأعرج عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من يقم ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, من يقم, man refers to al-aqil, or to the human being. Whoever stand in matters of worship, whoever worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the night of Al-Qadr, Laylatul Qadr, it's a night of Ramadan. Allah knows best which night, children, inshallah, you're having a good time, inshallah. The Laylatul Qadr is a night of Ramadan, and it's more likely to be in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, more likely, right? But it moves, right? But the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw that people are seeking Laylatul Qadr, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hid Laylatul Qadr from us for the great wisdom behind this. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he came into the people and he saw them, they are seeking Laylatul Qadr every night of Ramadan, so the Prophet ﷺ said, التمسوها في العشر الأواخر. Seek it in the last 10 nights. Another hadith, seek it in the last odd nights of the last 10 nights. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ used to make i'tikaf in the masjid, stay in the masjid the whole 10 nights, so that he doesn't miss anything of Laylatul Qadr, to have the heart together, because it's not about physically standing or physically reciting. It's the reward is given when a person do these physical acts, when his heart is all together, also focused on the matters of ibadah and the khushu' and the khudu' and so on. So whoever worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this Laylatul Qadr, imanan wa ihtisaban, two conditions, you probably heard it many times every Ramadan. Imanan, and that's why the hadith is here, believing in it, right? Believing in Laylatul Qadr, that it's virtuous, believing in the rewards and so on. Wa ihtisaban, and it was said imanan, meaning that he is in the state of al-iman, because this is an act of worship. Seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ihtisaban, seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَغُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ, his previous sins will be forgiven. All of the previous sins will be forgiven. This is in addition to the reward that it's equal to 1,000 months. So this is with regards to Laylatul Qadr, and this is part of Al-Iman. Actions are part of Al-Iman. Then he says, Babul Jihad min Al-Iman. Al-Jihadu min Al-Iman. Al-Jihad, in this context, of course, it means fighting for the sake of Allah. That is from Al-Iman. Although Al-Jihad in Al-Islam is maratib, is levels, right? There is Jihadul Nafs, to struggle with oneself, the Jihad of the hypocrites, by the Hujjah and Bayan, by evidence and proofs and so on. And there is the Jihad of the disbelievers in the right context, which is fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the highest level of Al-Iman, with the proper way of this. This is also part of Al-Iman. He says, حدثنا حرمي بن حفص قال حدثنا عبد الواحد قال حدثنا عمارة قال حدثنا أبو زرعة بن عمرو بن جرير قال سمعت أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال, that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, انتدب الله لمن خرج في سبيله. انتدب Allah, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make such a person, or give him a reward immediately, right? سارع بثوابه, which means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him the reward fast, like as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala سريع العقاب, that he is fast in punishment, also fast in giving the reward. لمن خرج في سبيله, for the one that goes out في سبيل الله, في سبيل الله, and for the sake of Allah. When the word fi sabilillah is mentioned like this, and this is as a rule, in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, if it's just mentioned like that, it means one thing. It means al-jihad fi sabilillah. Unless there's more into the context that takes it from that meaning to something else. Right? So that a person would not interpret things according to his own liking. Right? Because everything a Muslim does fi sabilillah. Right? You go to the salah fi sabilillah. You go to visit a relative fi sabilillah. For the sake of Allah, I give charity fi sabilillah. Everything, the whole life is fi sabilillah. But when it comes into the context of the ayat and the hadith, this is what it first means. Right? Unless it's specified in the context of the ayat and the hadith that it's for something else. So whoever goes out fi sabilillah, لا يخرجه إلا إيمان به, does not get him out from his place, except إيمان به, believing in me. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وتصديق برسلي, and believing in my messengers, أن أرجعه بما نال من أجر أو غنيمة. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if a person goes out with that intention, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and believing in the messengers of Allah, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring him back, urji'ahu, meaning that he will go back, بِمَا نَالَ مِنْ أَجْرٍ أَوْ غَنِيمٍ, with whatever he gains from reward or ghanima, or the booty of the war. Right? أَوْ أُدْخِلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ, or to admit him into Jannah. So if he goes and comes back still alive, he comes back with the booty of the war if he's victorious, and the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or if he is defeated and still alive, he comes back with the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or if he dies, أُدْخِلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ, that he will be admitted into Jannah. Then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَلَوْلَا أَنْ أَشُقَّ عَلَى أُمَّتِي, and if it wasn't to make it difficult for my ummah, right? مَا قَعَدْتُ خَلْفَ سَرِيٍّ, I would, this is what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, I would never sit back behind every Sariya expedition or part of the army that goes out for fighting for the sake of Allah. He would not sit back, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would want to be with them. But if it wasn't that it would make it difficult for my ummah, sometimes he would stay back, alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, if it wasn't to make it difficult for my ummah, I would never sit back. وَلَوَدِدْتُ, and I would love to, أني أقتل في سبيل الله, that I would be killed في سبيل الله, for the sake of Allah. ثم أحيا, then I become alive again. ثم أقتل, then I'm to be killed. Then ثم أحيا ثم أقتل, then to be alive, then to be killed. This is something that the Prophet ﷺ would wish to have. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ also said, that those who are martyred, when they die for the sake of Allah, the only one that would wish to come back to this dunya after he received what is good. Because the disbelievers, when they die and they see the punishment of Allah, everybody wants to come back to the dunya to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's too late. For the believers, once they die and they receive what is good, they never want to come back to this dunya. Why? Back to miseries and all kinds of bad things. Except the shaheed, except the martyr, when he dies and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts him, he would want to come back. For what reason? Not to enjoy this life, but to die again, and so on and so forth, because of the great karama and honor that he receives as a result of his martyrdom. The point is that this is part of Al-Iman, and the condition of it, of course, is matters of Al-Iman. Then he says that تطوع قيام رمضان من الإيمان. تطوع, the voluntarily, something to be done not as an obligation, but something as a voluntary act. قيام رمضان من الإيمان, to stand in the night prayer in Ramadan, this is from Al-Iman. So Al-Iman is not just the obligations, but also the recommended acts, as it's clearly mentioned. And he mentioned the same hadith, but as we said that fiqh al-Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, the knowledge of al-Imam al-Bukhari in his titles, right? So every title is like a mas'ala in matters of the deen, something for us to learn. This is a ruling in the deen of Islam. So the previous one with regards to Laylatul Qadr, Babu Qiyam Laylatul Qadr min al-Iman, standing in the night of Al-Qadr in worship from Al-Iman. This one is Babu Tatawwa Qiyam Ramadan min al-Iman. Tatawwa, he added the word Tatawwa, which means the voluntary act that is done in the night of Ramadan. This is from Al-Iman. And he narrates the same hadith with different chain of narration. حدثنا إسماعيل قال حدثني مالك, الإمام مالك رحمه الله, عن ابن شهاب الزهري عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stand up in the salah and do the acts of worship in Ramadan, this is Ramadan, not Laylatul Qadr, but Ramadan in general, إيمانا واحتسابا. إيمانا واحتسابا, believing in it, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believing in the reward of it and so on, واحتسابا, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. And another point that the ulama, they mentioned, the word imana, with belief, right? People when they stand in Ramadan, if you imagine people from after Isha in the night of Laylatul Qadr, they all stood up and they did the same actions till Fajr. No difference between one or the other. The same salah, the same act of worship, exactly the same physically. Their rewards definitely not the same. Vary so much. For more than one reason, one of which is the khushu', the amount of humbleness and focus and concentration they have in their ibadah. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ لَا يَنْصَرِفْ أو إِنَّ الرَّجُلْ لَا يَنْصَرِفُ مِنْ صَلَاتِهِ وَمَا كُتِبَ لَهُ إِلَى عُشْرُهَا تُسْعُهَا ثُمُنُهَا سُبْعُهَا سُدُسُهَا and so on. Which means a man would finish his salah and only 1/10 of his salah is been written for him. 1/9, 1/8, 1/7, 1/6 and so on. The Prophet ﷺ kept going, which means it's according to what people did physically the same act. It's according to how much they were into the salah. So this is one variable. Another one is iman. Right? You come to the salah with that much iman. Because of the good deeds increases the iman, right? So you are like in a trade with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The best trade ever. So when you do a trade with 1 million and you make 10%, I'm talking about matters of dunya, right? That's 100,000 profit. But if you trade in 1,000 and you make 10% profit, that's $100. So somebody might make 100,000 profit and someone might make $100 only, right? It all depends on what they did more or the same effort. Actually, sometimes the one with less money probably made more effort. But because he's doing the trade with what? With a big sum of money, right? And something just to make it closer to our minds, this is something that the ulama mentioned, when you increase your iman, it's not just, it affects the deeds too. So the reward of the salah is affected because of how strong your iman is. And the reward of Laylatul Qadr and Ramadan and so on. So this is another benefit. Why a Muslim should work on increasing his iman, otherwise the physical acts are the same, but people vary so much with the reward. So why waste our life without being people of strong iman and so on? The previous sins will be forgiven. باب صوم رمضان احتسابا من الإيمان. Another thing with the same hadith, باب صوم, fasting Ramadan احتسابا. He mentioned احتسابا here only, من الإيمان, from الإيمان, and that's why الاحتساب is an act of worship. And this is one of the عبودية that has been neglected so much. عبودية الاحتساب. عبودية الاحتساب is to have this act of worship of seeking rewards. Always seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that a person do. And if a person is in state of remembrance of Allah, he will always seek rewards from Allah in anything. Whether it's in relationships, in actions, in speech, and in anything. You go to the store to get milk for your family, right? You're going anyway, right? So make ihtisab. Seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're doing this for the sake of Allah. How is it for the sake of Allah? Because you're responsible to provide for your family. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider. So you use the provisions from Allah to provide for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shakur, which means He's the most grateful subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one that provides for them. And you are used to bring these provisions, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur, is the most grateful. That person, if he seeks rewards from Allah, he is provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the reward is something that we cannot comprehend. And that's why anyone that will do something that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is used, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used him to fulfill the bounties and the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This person is a great treasure, right? If a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him money to give charity to the poor people, Allah is the provider. But it's out of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He uses some of His slaves, right, to do this. These people are the best when they're doing something to fulfill the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't look at themselves as the doer of things. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one that provides. So the same thing the father is doing to his family, and not reminding them, I went so late to get you milk, just be grateful to me. It ruins his deeds. Right? He do it for the sake of Allah. He does not need anything from them. If he's concerned that they should be grateful, it's for their own benefit, because they need to have the proper upbringing. So, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man la yashkuru nas la yashkuru Allah." Whoever does not is thankful to the people, he's not thankful to Allah. So you're worried about their good being, not that they did not thank you, right? You're not seeking that from them, but you want them to have manners and so on.